conservative,
Christian, mother, wife,
Air Force veteran,
gun rights advocate.
This is Stacy on the Right. Here's your host, Stacy Washington.
Welcome back to the program. Thank you for being with us this evening. Joining me now is James Dickson, Michigan-based journalist, political commentator. He hosts the James Dickson podcast. James, thank you so much for being here tonight.
Hey, Stacy. Good evening. Good to hear your voice.
Oh, thank you. We have a lot to dig into tonight. I want to first off start with, we have energy prices spiking. We have a lot of Americans who we did this at my house. We looked at the energy bill, and there's the smart meter, so it has the detail is astounding. It's frightening what all they're tracking. And what you can do is you can actually pull up information that shows this time last year how much electricity did I use. So we are actually using less electricity, but because the rate per kilowatt hour has gone up, we're paying more than we were last year, even though we're getting less actual electrical usage. And we were just taking a note of that because I was thinking, I wonder if anybody else is looking at this. I wonder if people are kind of examining and comparing from a year ago. Maybe they're using more energy, so they're thinking, oh, okay, that's why it's gone up. It's actually the rate that's gone up because, otherwise, why in the world would it be so much higher? You're talking about this as well, and you're including the White House data center deals. Talk to us about what you found.
Absolutely. I mean, it's a problem all across America. I live in Michigan. We were a swing state in 2024. We were kind of important, and it's the same story where people are just saying, my energy bills keep going up. And what's fascinating is that Michigan has our leadership here, Governor Gretchen Whitmer. They've made us more reliant on solar and wind as the years go on. And at the same time, they're bringing in data centers, which suck up massive amounts of energy. And so we're kind of burning the candle at both ends. Meanwhile, people are also paying higher bills than they did a year ago or years ago.
So what's the answer here? Because I've said we didn't have any of the utilities going up when we were supporting the advancement of the computer, right? We've never had a case where we say let's charge Americans more for X, Y, or Z because of whatever the new technology is. So this is a kind of an uncharted place for us to be in, but it's also it just feels like we're being used. I mean, come on, why are we paying so much more for energy? And then also we have to fund all of these data centers being built, and the approvals are going through like lightning fast.
Oh, we're absolutely being used. I mean, you see it right here. I mean, so like you said, so we're using more energy than ever. Data centers are sucking up massive amounts of energy, but at the same time, our governments are transitioning to reliable or what they call renewable energy. So that's the wind, that's the solar, weather-dependent energy is probably an even better way to say it. And so what they're doing is they're worsening our reliability, raising our costs, but what they've promised is that data centers will not have to run on this renewable energy. And so the energy that me and you use to warm our homes, that may or may not work in a year, and it will cost more. But data centers will be made sure that they never fall low of what they need. And so what Donald Trump is trying to do, the president, he's made a very smart effort. He's made a very smart attempt, just trying to establish a standard that if a data company, if an AI company needs to use massive amounts of data, they need to pay for that data as opposed to their neighbors.
So the statement that he's making, is this an executive order or is this legislation? Like how can we be sure that we're actually going to see this come to fruition, this protection?
I mean, I've seen it described as everything, even short, like a handshake deal, basically, saying, hey, we're going to bring in the companies and kind of establish this standard. And I like what I've seen, some of the statements from Congress where they're saying, let's codify this into law. But, I mean, Donald Trump was elected with a Republican majority in the House and the Senate. He was given all the power in the world, and we still haven't seen much codified into law. Even things that people want and know about, like the SAVE Act, to require citizenship before people can vote. And so it just, at this point, really the Republican Congress is one of the biggest impediments to any particular policy, but also to success in 2026, because it sends the message that even if you give them all the power in the world, they may or may not use it on your behalf.
And isn't that something? Because, remember, we were told, President Trump's agenda has to get done. It has to get, brought through to the Congress. And so,
right.
We need, everyone has to do their part. You have to vote. And we did. We have to donate. We did. We need to give him the House and the Senate. And we did. But I was just discussing with a guest earlier tonight how you literally have an actual dog show in the U.S. Senate as opposed to them working on the SAVE Act.
An actual dog show. Like this isn't hyperbole, guys. Go look it up. They did an actual dog show at the same time Republican voters are clamoring for the SAVE Act. The bar's not even high. We're not saying ram through the whole agenda. Maybe we should be. But we're just saying do some of the stuff. And so, right now, Stacy, I'm in the middle of a tour. It's called Make Politics Local Again, going all across Michigan to talk about 2026. And I'll tell you, it's a two-way influence operation. I thought I was doing this to influence the Republican voter to get off their couch and show up. And that part, I think, is going to go well. But the second part is perhaps even more important, which is if I do get people to show up, and if people do place their faith in you, you have to deliver for them. The reason Democrats can vote a John Fetterman or even a robot into office is because that robot will deliver reliably. Republican politicians, you can't say the same for. So even when Republicans do get off the couch, they're often left disappointed by their representatives.
Yeah, I mean, showing up and voting, trying to get the actual agenda implemented, you feel a little silly when you hear that they had a dog show. I mean, I thought to myself, oh, this must be some AI. And then I looked and, you can verify nowadays. I mean, as much as I dislike some of the kind of AI stuff, you can actually verify if something is real or AI. And when I realized it was a real story, I thought, oh, okay. So that's what they're doing. So they only work Tuesday through Thursday. So, maybe that's a part of it too. They just don't have to work that hard.
And that is a form of betrayal. And we have to think about it that way and talk about it that way. To whom much is given, much is expected. And when you're given all this power, and so what we see is Donald Trump, man of the people, gets more votes than anyone in history, more legitimate votes anyway, and people were happy to elevate him again. And then they surround him with his choice of a Congress. There were all the Republican leadership you could want, and then they either are stalling him out or tanking him, and I'm not really clear what the difference between the two would be at this point. And so Donald Trump has done a lot to overtake and hijack the Republican Party to make it more of a fighting face than a go-along, get-along junior partner. But there's a lot of that the Mitt Romney instinct. There's a lot of that Bill Buckley standing and yelling stop in history rather than grabbing the controls and changing it yourself. And so that's going to have to be rooted out too.
So what are some steps as you're going across Michigan to talk about this? What are you advising people to do to get us? Because we still have 3 years left of President Trump. That's the good news. The good news is 3 years, but it goes by so quickly. I've been so dismayed. Yes, I'm happy with what President Trump has done so far. He has a lot more to do, though. And sometimes I feel like the time is being stolen from us. Like I was listening to the radio and someone said today on the radio, time is a thief. And they were talking about children, how 1 second you're parenting and the next second you're kissing someone goodbye at a dorm, right? It's a big old adult you're looking at, and that was your baby. And so they were saying time is a thief. And I thought, not to be melodramatic, but time is a thief when it comes to, having President Trump in office. We really need him for 3 more years plus 3 more years after that, but we're only getting the 3.
We're only getting the 3. And Donald Trump is doing his level best to make the most out of it. And so, part of my answer is that not only do we show up, but we have to demand Republican politicians who show up for us. It has to be a two-way exchange. Oftentimes, people are just content to stop by your house, knock on your door, send mailers out, and every few years they'll ask, for your vote, and every few months they'll ask for more money. But what we need is people who feel the need to be connected to us, people who have that gut-level, visceral understanding that the power they hold comes from us. Too often they treat us like we're an annoyance when, in fact, we're the reason they hold the positions they do. And so the Donald Trump effect, it's been incredible. He hasn't obviously drained the whole swamp, but he's come as close as anyone ever has. But we need to send several hundred more Trump-like figures to Washington, not just one man.
Yeah, it does feel like he has an extraordinary lift, and the ones who should be helping him, like Senator Thune, again,
right.
No personal bias against Thune, just that I really want him to actually do what he was elected to do, which is, he's got to pass the SAVE Act.
And what the Republicans are essentially saying through their actions, through how they conduct themselves, through their disinterest in what we want and acting quickly on it, they're basically saying, well, you don't have any other options. You don't have any other options. It's us or nobody. And what they don't get is what's happening in Texas with Senator John Cornyn about to lose that primary to Ken Paxton. That kind of thing is how we need to do it in red states, whereas in purple states or blue states like Michigan, it's about getting a Republican in the door to begin with. And Michigan used to be just like those states. We were solidly red, a decade and a half ago. But every time those Republicans try to meet in the middle, Gretchen Whitmer, in her first term, Republicans signed 1,000 laws with her. Every time Republicans meet in the middle, they lose that power. They become weaker. The party becomes weaker, and things shift to the left. We have to get this message out that if you are weak, there will be consequences.
So talk to me a little bit more about your analytics on the Cornyn race, because one of the things that I thought was interesting about that is for a while, Ken Paxton was only in the news, and he's been on the show a bunch of times. And I just thought he was great. And then all of a sudden, every news story was about him and some corruption probe. And at first I thought, oh, my gosh, how could we have misjudged? Because, he's been on here so many times, given such great legal analysis. And then I started reading into the stories and I realized, oh, my gosh, they're doing the same thing to Ken Paxton, but to a better effect that they were attempting to do to Donald Trump. They wanted to sully his name and basically get him out of politics because he's too much of a reformer. And so, Ken Paxton just quietly and methodically kept fighting them and eventually beat them. I mean, he beat the stuffing off of them, and that's why he's able to survive to fight another day, in this case, to go up against Cornyn in the primary. And so, he's battle hardened. It's not a surprise that that he looks good for this race because of everything that he went through. All it did was making him a sharper political opponent and harder to, you can't intimidate him. It's hard to beat somebody who has already been beaten up a lot and then they're still standing. Those are the toughest ones to do anything against.
And that's what's happening is these Trump-style politicians, persecution, I think about in Acts of the Apostles. The apostles thanked God for being counted worthy of persecution, of stonings, of beatings, of imprisonment. And I think that's how believers have to view it. And whether it's Old Testament or New, you go back to antiquity, the people who are being attacked and persecuted are typically the ones telling the truth. And I think that's what made it click for so many people with President Trump is when he got shot in the head. That typically only happens to people who pose a threat to the system. And so whatever you can say about how Trump is not perfect and I would have done this differently, clearly the powers that be see him as a threat, one that even needs to be neutralized. And so we have to adjust the way we call it fake news, but then we'll turn around and believe every word they print. You can't very well do both. And so we have to read news with that protractor in our head of just being able to monitor and spot, okay, here's how this story is slanted. Here's what they want me to think. And whether it's polling, whether it's these supposed expose stories, we have to be thinking about, why are they telling me this? Why are they telling me this now? And what are they not telling me? When you know what they're trying to achieve, it almost doesn't matter what they say because it's done with a biased intent.
Yeah. It really becomes an issue of, why would I choose to believe these people, the same people who tried to imprison President Trump, the same people who tried to, that's why I get so, I get really worked up because I see, and again, it's not personal for me. I know there's going to be somebody tonight who emails me, well, you just don't like this one. I don't care. I have friends. You know what I mean? I have real friends. I have prayer partners. I don't know them. And unlike some people, I've had some pretty amazing invitations where I've gotten a chance. I'll just be sitting there. And I remember one time I turned to my husband. We were at Mar-a-Lago, and it was our first time. And I turned to him, and I was like, how did we get in here? And he was like, they don't know, but they let us in. We're in here. We laughed so hard. We had tears running down our face. We were not at a front table, right? We weren't front and center. Nobody was taking our picture, but we were in that room. We were in that room. We were inside, and we had taken pictures in the first part, like it's like a vestibule, and then there's like a big receiving room, and there's like tapestries on the wall, and the sofa looked too fancy to sit on, and we just were standing around taking pictures. And we finally got into the ballroom, and we were eating. And I turned to him and I said that. And that night, we had rented a Jeep because we were, of course you want to rent something fun because we're in Miami. And we were on our way back, and we stopped in downtown Miami because we'd never been down there before. So we're downtown Miami. We're driving along, and I said, "Can you believe?" He said, "Won't God do some stuff?" He said, "He let us get to Mar-a-Lago. We sat there and listened to the story of how President Trump built a ballroom for his wife. He said there was no place in America that was beautiful enough to marry her in, so he built the ballroom because he said, this is beautiful enough for you, Melania." I was like, "Oh, that's so romantic." He was like, "Isn't it though? Who knew Trump was a romantic?" And we were just sitting there just going over the night and how wonderful it was. And so I only say that I am not special. There were 1,000 people in that ballroom that night. And there have been years where I have not been invited to that party. So this is, I'm not a special. There's nothing special here. But what I'm saying is I don't need to have a personal relationship with multi-million-dollar podcasters. I don't need to make multi-millions of dollars doing this job. If I did, I wouldn't be on the radio tonight because they're certainly not paying me that to do this job. I'm here for the truth. I'm a movement person. I'm here for the truth. I've lost enough friends, real friends. I've lost enough relationships. I've had the breakdown of private family relationships that should have never been on the table. That has all happened to me, and I've survived and lived to tell another day. And so when someone tries to make this about, oh, this is personal, or you just don't like, no, honey, we're way past me not liking somebody. That doesn't even enter the equation. I'm disagreeing on the principle of the thing, or what's the even purpose of me being here doing this all night? You know what I mean? Like it's not like it's noon, right? And I have nothing better to do. This is the nighttime. If I'm not doing this, I'm sitting on the couch with my husband watching a show and going to bed early because I love that man. I would ask any minute I can spend with him is a good minute for me. So This is about what people are doing to us. And I believe that it's the same thing we see. Why would Ken Paxton battle all of those lawsuits to run against Cornyn? Because he believes in something. Why would President Trump get shot in the face and still run? Because he believes in something. This is about doing a thing, accomplishing a mission. It's not about making millions of dollars or, yeah, it's my friend. I can't believe my friend would say that about me. I've heard it all. You wouldn't believe the stuff people email me. I can't believe someone would say that. I can't believe people email me the stuff they email. But here we are. So it's not about friendship, right? It's not about friendship. It's not about relationships. I like having friends. I like having, good relationships. But at the end of the day, There has to be something that's driving me to stay up all night and talk. There's to be something that's driving me to read just one more article, one more book, interview one more person. And it's not friendship. It's not, I just think,
No.
it has nothing to do with any of that. So you're talking about, you're going across Michigan and, God bless. First of all, Michigan is so beautiful. People always think of Detroit, but it's the
gorgeous.
whole place is gorgeous. It's when I first went, I thought, oh my gosh, I've been missing out. I could have been here all this whole time eating cheese because y'all are some cheese eating people up. The gas stations have cheese. I mean, I went to a cheese shop while we were there. I walked in. I was like, what is this? She said, oh, these are regular cheeses. I said, what do you mean? She said, these are cheeses that you just eat, because you just want some cheese. She said, these are not the fancy cheeses. I was like, Lord have mercy. And the beer drinking in the morning. It's so cold in Michigan that y'all drink beer for breakfast to warm you up, which that's a German thing. I mean, it's a German thing, and I love it. I love it for you, and I love it for anybody who wants to drink some beer. I don't really like beer. But I was tempted the way y'all were guzzling it back early in the morning. It was 7:30. It was like 2 degrees outside, and the people were throwing the beer back like it was no big deal. And we were there to speak on the Trump bus, and we had such a great time in Michigan. And so let's then go to the next step, because this is a multi-step effort that you're talking about. You're going to go around and educate people in Michigan. You're going to talk to them, motivate them. And then what? What are you looking? Because this is obviously this is an effort that's partly to help the midterms.
Right, and part of my mission, and not to contradict my host, you're an excellent host, I'm trying to get us to move past that word midterm, because so in Michigan and 35 other states, so 36 states in November, you get to choose your governor of that state, right? And so if I were to call it a midterm, that's a scenario where the president's party is going to lose 90% of the time. And so to me, to talk about it that way is to essentially book a loss before the election even starts. Well, I view the 2026 election more as Michigan's last chance. It is a must-win election. It's not a Washington election. It's about who is going to lead us in Lansing. And so the whole point of Make Politics Local again is we're going to shift our focus away from national news headlines that are engineered to hurt you toward the local stories that the media doesn't talk about because they like the Democrats who run the state. So we're going to talk about Gretchen Whitmer and how our budget has grown by $30 billion and no one can say how it benefits you. We're going to talk about the damn roads, the damn schools, the damn energy prices that Gretchen Whitmer said she was going to make improvements on all these things. None of it has happened. We're going to talk about Jocelyn Benson, our Secretary of State, now running for governor, and how she brought Chinese voters into the voting booth and their vote counted and hasn't done anything to erect barriers to keep it from happening again. We're going to talk about the Democrats who run Michigan and how they've run it into the ground. And if we talk about the situation in our specific state, then we make the case for change. What you don't want is to get dragged into national and international headlines, which will augur defeat.
All right. So, and when you talk about that 90%, I just would only say, I'm just encouraging you. One thing that I know is that President Trump shouldn't have won in November of 24. He outperformed the expectations for everything. And so I'm saying he could do that again in the midterm, but it's not just going to be on Team Trump, right? Trump victory can't do it in the midterm. I do want us to look at the midterm on the national level and say, like, what can I do? What can I do to make this a better election? It's voting. It's showing up. It might be donating. It might be phone banking. It might be, you get an iPad from the GOP and you phone bank. Whatever it is that you feel is in your wheelhouse to do, I want people to do that. Not to discount the election and say, well, history says we can't win. Yeah, history also said, if Donald Trump, they attempt to assassinate him and they execute lawfare on him and cost him hundreds of millions of dollars in his personal wealth, he shouldn't be able to come back from that. He not only came back from it, he won every swing state. He outperformed every expectation. Yes. So we can do that in the midterm. So I just want to level set and set expectations here as we're talking. And then the other thing is I really respect what you're doing, traveling around your own state to get the change that you want to see, because, you know, the dog and pony show, which is literally a dog show now. Like, remember when we used to call it a dog and pony show and that was a euphemism? Now it's an actual dog.
We called it that.
We were trying to be clever. We had, you know, we scored well on our aptitude on the SAT for
we didn't think they'd actually
English.
do it though.
No. That wasn't the point. The point wasn't that we expected them to put sweaters on their dogs and put them into little wagons and do an actual show at the Longfellow building, Longworth, whatever it's called. Did you think that? I mean, maybe I should start. That's what I should start off. Every guest who comes on from now on, I should ask them, did you tell the Senate to do the dog show, the actual show? Because I kind of thought to myself, you know, that was a euphemism. That's what I thought. Yeah.
Yeah, the Senate's really gone to the dogs these days.
Yeah, it's gone to the dogs. The fancy dogs, the designer dogs, not the dogs you find on the streets of New York City, but, you know, dogs that have like pedigrees and clothes and names, you know.
You know, Stacy, one of the things that really motivated me is not just Trump's example, but seeing what happened to Charlie Kirk, right? The most reasonable guy in the whole movement. Not one of these Matt Walsh types who is more than happy to pick a fight and more than happy to take on powers and principalities. Charlie was there to get college students thinking. And some of them, yes, will come to Christ, and some of them will come to truth. But can I just have a conversation with you? Can we just act like people used to act 20 years ago, having dorm room pizza? He was doing that and got killed. And so seeing that, it just made me think, what can all of us do to be counted worthy of such persecution? And so I'm not saying I'm here to fill Charlie's shoes, but I am here to do my part. And so Charlie said, you know, quoting the Bible, "Here I am, Lord, send me." That needs to be our attitude. I thought you said it perfectly. Whether your skill is cutting a check, making a phone call, knocking on doors, rallying up 5 friends to vote, whatever it is, do something as opposed to nothing. We can't assume that America's going to fix itself, elections are going to win themselves, and that governments run themselves. If we do not take an active hand in shaping what happens next, the future will reflect someone else's vision.
And it'll be a brutal vision because the left has already said they want to, you know, they want to criminalize supporting President Trump. They're at their highest form of evil because they have learned nothing from attempting to assassinate President Trump. And you mentioned Charlie Kirk. You know, he was the best of us. He was the nicest of us. He was the one who you described him as wanting to have a conversation. He also was a movement person. They destroyed him because of his effectiveness, because he could actually turn out voters. He motivated college students to swing to the right, to dream of something more than just being a wage slave. He motivated those kids to love the idea of finding someone the way he found Erica. You know, I honestly believe, because remember, the devil comes to lie, kill, steal, and destroy.
Yes.
And if you are someone you're a disciple of Jesus Christ, you're out there teaching people how to love, teaching them how to want something more, how to dream big. What's bigger than dreaming about having kids? What's bigger than thinking about, you know, having a spouse and loving someone? What's greater than the things that he was kind of saying? Have more kids, go to church, make friends, work hard, find something to do that you love, contribute, be a part of your, you know, I hate to say community because I was just raging about how, you know, there's this whole thing about people saying, you represent your community. And I'm like, what community is that? I live in a white area with a bunch of Republicans. I you know, don't talk to me about my community. I'm an American and you're an American. And so let's gather around ideas instead of making this about, you know, a perceived grouping because of our skin color. Because that really isn't what brings us together, right? You can walk into a crowd of people who look like you and have nothing in common with those people and leave without having really made any connections. Then you can stand around in a group of people who you honestly think to yourself, there isn't a friend for me here. And those are the people you walk out, you're like, wow, what great connections I made. Wow, what a great opportunity to, talk to people. Oh, the ideas we shared. Oh, the laughs we just shared. So I want people to if you're thinking about how can I be a part of this, you just described it, James. Maybe it's something to do with politics. Maybe you're meant to be on a school board. Maybe you're just meant to attend the school board meetings and rip those people a new one when they start talking, spouting off about DEI and everything else. You just go in there and make comment, right? They do. They need management. They need managing. Maybe the next iteration, because there will be no replacement for Charlie Kirk. But what there can be is a bunch of Americans like yourself who you're saying, I'm going to go out and I'm going to talk to people. It doesn't have to be college campuses. Remember, so the way one person does a thing is probably not going to be the way that you do a thing. So don't try to recreate, as opposed to maybe the thing that we all need to do is look at how we can support Turning Point because of the attack that they're under. They're under such a heavy mode of attack.
Talked about that, where people would go to visit her ministry in Calcutta, India, and so you're stepping over problems in your real life, fly out to Calcutta to get in on someone else's thing, and Mother Teresa who did that, and find your own Calcutta. That's what we need to do. We need to find our own Goliath, find your own Normandy. Find your own Calcutta. Like, what is the thing that God has given me the tools to address? Large amounts of people, explaining complex things in short amounts of time. That's my gift. But you know what? A year and a half ago, I would have never thought that I could be doing something like this. Going on the road. You only do that if it's God. What you were saying about wanting to be with your husband, that's how I feel about my wife. I had a speech tonight, and literally we missed each other between when I had to leave and when she got home by about 15 minutes. And I just left as early as I could to get back because we just need some amount of time together. I just love her.
And so you and I are simpatico there because I love spending time with my husband. And that's the thing about this job. He was actually working remotely, so I was with him all day long. So this, it was like a 3-year respite where he worked from home. He has an office here, but he worked from home. And so I saw him all the time. And at night I'd be on the radio and I would just be gung-ho and fired up and energetic about it. Well, I still am energetic about my job and I do love doing this work. But now he's gone all day and then at night I'm doing this. So it makes it, it's more of a sacrifice. So does that mean I don't want to do it? Of course not. But what it does mean is that I have more skin in this game than I'm given credit for. People are just, you have such a life. And I'm like, yes, I do. By the grace of God, I do. But I also don't spend the evenings with my husband the way you do with yours. So, enjoy your husband in the evening. I'm on the radio. My husband is not in here on the radio with me. Obviously, why would he be? So, I have a lot of skin in this game. I should have ultimate credibility. Maybe people don't agree with what I'm saying. They don't agree with my viewpoint, but certainly don't place me in a place where, that's just something you do for fun. Not really. I don't know anybody else who says, you know what, let me find a job where my schedule is going to be the opposite of my husband's and we're empty nesting and let me just go ahead and do that job instead of doing the thing that I assumed I would be doing at this time, which is hanging out with my husband as if he was my boyfriend again and doing all the things during the week, going to happy hours, hanging out with other couples, right? It costs.
What about Donald Trump? Bill Clinton,
my goodness.
Dated more women than he ever dated. He had to become president to get good with women. Donald Trump has had fewer women at any point in his adult life in the last 12 years because he's had every eye on the East Coast on him at every moment. Think about all he has given up to do this. They look at this and they look at what they can get in the here and now. We think about what's coming after this and what we can give up now.
And to his credit, he's got the better part of valor because he and Melania have such an excellent relationship. Yeah. Bill Clinton has never known the kind of love that the Trumps have for each other. He and
No,
Hillary,
never
they
given
were always a business partnership, never that they weren't each other's love story. We've watched President Trump and his wife develop their relationship beyond what it was even when he first took office the first time. Nothing will bring you closer than having someone try to kill your spouse. They've been forged together in a fire that I don't think they saw coming. Of course they knew it would be hard, but I don't think they ever anticipated assassination attempts and lawfare, and their whole family has had to pull together in such an extraordinary way. And so I just, I point that out. I don't want sympathy. I'm not saying that because, I don't feel like my life is extraordinarily hard, but this is what I've chosen to do. And this is where I am at night. And it's an honor and a privilege. It's a sacrifice, but it's also something that, we just need everybody to jump in and do a little something. Do it for Charlie. Do it for President Trump. Do it for your faith. Maybe do it just for yourself. Sometimes I look at it and I'm like, right, do it for your kids.
And if you're a boomer, I'm starting to get into some colleges, but mostly I find I'm talking to boomers when I do these things. If you're a boomer and listening to this, you have experienced the best of America, right? You caught the economy, the housing market, a lot of things just lined up right. And if you're a boomer, chances are your kids are grown. You're probably retired or close to it. You might have the resources. You might have the job freedom. You might have the situational freedom where you can make a contribution that you never have because you never thought you had to. And this might be the perfect chance to give back right here, right now.
Make it happen, folks. We've given you every good reason and 50 more. I look forward to talking to you again as you continue to make your way across Michigan. And I encourage everyone, wherever you get your podcast, just type in James Dickson podcast and you can take a listen. Add that to your subscriptions and cool stuff that you're doing. James, thank you so much for joining in, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you, Stacy. This was a blessing.
It was. It's good to talk to you.